Welcome back to Aspect of the Day. Today we're talking about Mercury in opposition with Pluto in the birth chart. So I'm going to read through what the Astrologer's Handbook has to say about it, and I'll give my own thoughts along the way. This is one I've seen in a few charts that I've consulted. This opposition can cause great mental tension because the natives find themselves in situations in which they must deal with secret and potentially dangerous information. Researchers on secret projects often have this aspect. Often these people are a repository of confidential information. In extreme cases, the native may actually be involved in spying or detective work and get themselves into difficulties doing it. It's kind of a weird sentence. Anyway, in extreme cases, it can result in death. That's what happens when you play with fire and don't know how to tame it. This does equate to having to deal with fires that must be tamed, for sure. Sometimes these natives are abrupt and harsh in their speech, or else others are abrupt and harsh toward them. Right, you get back what you put out. All right, so you may have a level of speech that is very deep and serious. That's more what it's about. It's not so much about like a Mars type fiery harshness. It's more about there's a level of depth that the person immediately wants to go into, even in social and personal situations that not everyone is comfortable with. So it produces an effect out there of people tending toward walking on eggshells around them or feeding back that misinterpretation of energy that is being put out. They may be engaged in scientific investigations. They also have a tendency to interrogate others or to be curious regarding them. The result is often resentment and bad personal relationships. Right, that's kind of what I just said about the depth that they want to go into. They want to ask questions. They want to know very particular things about any situation that they're in, any project that they're involved with. Okay, so there's a difference between having Mercury opposite Pluto right here and Mercury conjunct Pluto. Because in terms of what they're interested in, what they're inclined toward, it can look very similar. Investigation, scientific research, confidential things, information. Remember, we're dealing with Mercury, so it's like individual tidbits of information rather than the big picture. And Pluto is about depth. But there's a difference in the undercurrent, the reasoning behind why they're interested in those things, right? Whereas with the conjunction, Mercury and Pluto are flowing together very fluidly. Like when one of them is engaged, the other is engaged, and the native won't really see the difference between them, and there's no like internal tension. It may produce tensions from the outside, but they're more passive about dealing with it. They're more willing to just kind of brush it off and keep doing their own thing. The opposition can produce a personality quirk where they're more likely to get into quarrels because they themselves feel that tension between the two planets within themselves. And that feeling kind of gives them a bit of an adrenaline rush, right? There's this tug of war between information and depth and forbidden things happening within them. And they're on the same axis because it's an opposition. So there's this like kind of, dualistic immersion that they're involved with all the time, and it's an internal feeling, and so they feel like they have to be involved with all this confidential stuff, under the surface stuff. They have to dig deep into this person's history and personality who they just met, but the problem with and that can be very useful, right? If you channel it in scientific research, if you channel it in like government covert ops type work, that can be fine. But you have to have a structure, boundaries that you don't cross, lines that you don't cross in that kind of work. Because between Mercury, that atomized information and communication, and Pluto, infinite depth and forbiddenness, voidness, essentially. Uh, Neither of those planets inherently are very good at seeing the big picture and asking, well, why am I doing this? It's more a case of like, no, I just feel like I need to, right? It's a compulsion. So it's very important with this aspect that you channel it in a way that's productive. And also, tap into your Venus a bit. See what your Venus is doing and make sure that you're satisfying your Venus in a lot of the more, social contexts that this aspect could show up in. It's important for you to be able to relate to others and to not let this need for depth of information to encompass your personality. All right, so make sure that Venus is taken care of and that you're connecting with people in a healthy way that's conducive to their benefit as well. And look to Saturn if you need to understand where your boundaries are going to be regarding how you're going to channel this aspect productively, right? Because remember, it's a compulsion to go deep and to get under the surface of things. This aspect alone is not what you look to understand why you're doing that kind of work. Okay. So, as with any aspect or placement, make sure that the rest of the chart is satisfied and look to the other aspects to these individual planets to see where you can find ultimate balance in getting the most out of this aspect and your chart on the whole. So, hope you enjoyed this aspect of the day. You guys have a good one. Cheers.